What's going on, you loyal listeners? Thank you for tuning in to the L Squared Podcast. I'm your host here, Luke Larson, and finally, we're back. You know, we took a couple weeks off. We've had our holiday feasts. We've selfishly, launched ourselves into levity, but now we're back here to leisurely launch you into levity. Is my good special guest, Old Legs, is back through the miracle of technology. What up, Old Legs?
How we doing?
I'm doing good. It's good
What's
to hear.
on?
It's good to hear your voice again.
I'm back. I gotta say, I've seen a lot of movies. I have a lot of takes. They've been building up. I'm like a marathon runner that's been tapering, and now I'm just ready.
Yeah.
I'm ready to run, man.
I mean, I'm
ready to run. I'm ready to, even if it's a relay, I can do a relay now because I met my two identical long lost brothers.
Ooh, I like that segue.
I didn't know about. Yeah.
I like that segue.
Yeah.
So, I've also seen some movies, and I think that one movie that I've seen, and that you've seen, is Three Identical Strangers. So, before we get into everything we're going to get into, like we say all the time, we're just going to talk freely about this. So, if we bring up a movie you haven't seen, just skip ahead if you don't want to hear it, because we're gonna get into it.
Right. And today, we haven't been. We took a couple weeks off here. The holidays get kind of hectic, so we're just kind of gonna broad brush stroke a couple movies that we saw that were noteworthy, that we thought were interesting. So there's not really like a theme to this episode other than it's the end of the year. Luke and I are doing our best to see these movies and to get this information out to you, because I know, you're like, wow, do I want to go see Bird Box in my home? Well, if I had Luke and World Jordo there to tell me, then maybe you could make a better informed decision. Right?
Right.
This is what we do.
That makes perfect sense to me.
This is our purpose.
Yeah.
This is our purpose, and we are back.
And I can't think of a segue. You used the best one. I can't think of another one to get us back.
And on the other line is...
yeah. So, one of those movies, like we said, was Three Identical Strangers. Now, for those of you who haven't heard about this, it's a documentary. Basically, this guy starts telling a story about how he went to community college and people started coming up to him and saying, hey, we didn't think you were coming back. It's so great to see you. Hey, Eddie. And he's like, well, my name's not Eddie. I don't know what's going on. And then basically finds out that he had a doppelganger who went to that school the semester before. They met. They basically find out that they were what they thought were twins separated at birth. So they have they go to the newspaper, the New York Post, and they have a story written about them. And then a guy sees that story in the paper and he thinks, wow, I look just like these guys too. Come to find out that these weren't identical twins, but identical triplets that were separated at birth. And then they found each other. And yeah. So that's just kind of like the elevator pitch for this movie, and that's pretty much the first act, pretty much.
Right. And yeah, again, so it's a documentary. I have a couple questions. So the amazing thing about this is that these people were able to find each other through really just coincidental means without the internet. This is, we're talking like early 80s New York, so
right.
one of them is just happens to go to the same college the same year, and the other one sees the newspaper.
Mm-hmm.
And then it really starts this just media craze about these, three long-lost brothers. Without getting into just kind of like the controversy of it, I was wondering, is this a story today? Like, if this happened in 2018, for how long are we talking about this?
That's a good question.
More than 10 minutes?
Yeah, I mean, like, I think that it's tough because it's almost like I mean, I even think back to like the Vegas shooting, and that seems like years ago now.
Sure.
And just different events like that just seem so long ago because they just kind of come and go. So I mean, this would be, I'm not sure. I mean, it'd almost have to like become a best-selling novel and then get a movie deal to kind of like be big in 2018, I think. Or like maybe if all three of them were vloggers on YouTube and each had a big following, and they just happened to meet all on their vlogs
they were
at the
fake
same time.
feuding with
Right,
each other.
exactly.
And then through Instagram DM, they were like, yo,
like, what up?
We kind of like look the same, man.
Yeah. I think that
it's a really it's just like it's a shocking departure from what the media used to be. Like these three, like watching them make like the rounds that you would see. So like basically them going on what was like the equivalent of like Ellen today.
Yeah.
And that's basically the news.
Right.
It's really, really interesting, just the dilution of the media and having them be such a big thing. Like, to the fact where they open up a fucking restaurant, which blows my mind.
And they did $1 million their first year. Yeah, it's ridiculous.
Right. Yeah, and again, in the 1980s, it's, they were killing it.
Yeah.
And that would be the most insane thing ever. You think about New York today and food culture and the food scene. Like three guys that just look alike.
Yeah.
They wouldn't be open for a week.
Right.
It's interesting. I don't know. What did you think about the whole story of it? Because the bigger story is the cover-up and the idea that these kids were maliciously
Well, I kind of like that I didn't, I kind of like that I didn't know the twist going into it. I kind of knew that there was something else going on, but I didn't really know what. So, like, the initial just setup of basically what I said is interesting enough to, like, get you through a documentary. Like, that's a good enough story for you to be like, wow, that's really interesting. Okay. Like you said, and then we kind of forget about it. But then that, like you mentioned, what happens, that gives it a whole new take, and you're like, whoa, like, that turned in a direction that, like, you could maybe, I don't know, it was very, very interesting how they did it. I mean, well, it's a true story. It's not like they, constructed that. That'd be funny if they did. If they were like, this isn't interesting enough, let's throw in this little twist.
And then...
Yeah. Yeah. I mean,
a mere 33 years later.
Yeah.
We're gonna go ahead and we're gonna make a small market documentary about this.
That's where the money's at. I mean, no, I really liked it. I definitely like it. They just did a good job putting it all together, and you felt like, I don't know, I for sure felt the impact that they had just as triplets that were able to find each other, and they were so similar. And then, Yeah, I don't know. Do we want to talk in depth about the twist that happened?
Sure.
Okay. So, like you alluded to, you find out that they were basically part of a program, like, it was an experiment, a study, psychologically, to see where they were planted with different families, basically just to see how they would do if they got split up from each other, if they would end up being the same type of person. Is it nature versus nurture? When we have these literal 3 identical test subjects, we can kind of put them in different environments and just kind of see how they end up. And see it
was like Treadstone for triplets.
Yeah, dude, that's a movie. The Treadstone triplets. It's like Jason Bourne times 3. Sorry.
It's the only. This is probably the next Bourne movie. There's probably.
Dude, I'm sold.
2 other. Are you? Yeah. Elevator pitch.
Yeah.
Hey, you know that movie, the Bourne Supremacy. What if there were 2 more Matt Damons?
What?
And their brothers.
Wait a minute. Are you saying the same movie? We got 3 Matt Damons. We got 3
Those
spies.
Are 3 different Matt Damons. They don't know each other.
Dude.
But in this one, they're gonna meet.
Dude, I'm so in, dude.
Dude, I'm actually kind of in on that.
I think we can get that made.
I'm actually half tempted. Yeah. At the very least, we could start like an internet conspiracy, or at least a Reddit shitpost. Where are we sure? Are we sure that the Bourne trilogy is the same Jason Bourne?
It wasn't actually 3 different Matt Damons.
Because he really struggles with his identity.
That's true. That's a good point.
That's a pretty big plot hinge. Hey, you know.
That's very true.
At the very least, I think if we could get Matt Damon to come out and neither confirm nor deny the theory, right? It's just like, well, you know, like people have. Yeah. That would be the ultimate.
Yeah, the internet's crazy. Yeah, but are you aware of these? Look, guys, I'm a busy guy. I can't keep track of how many twins I supposedly have. You know.
Right.
Yeah.
So, nature versus nurture. What do you think?
Where am I at on that?
Right. Yeah, you saw the movie. What's the verdict?
Yeah, I mean, I've always that's just kind of the constant debate. It's been going on for a long time, but it's just so interesting because I feel like in my head, whenever I think about which one is more prevalent, it's just like one can't get like a stronghold over the other. Right when I think it's more nature than nurture, then I start to think about it more. I'm like, well, maybe it's actually more nurture than nature. I think that it's probably a pretty even split as far as I can tell. Because I think that you bring a lot to the table that you can't help and that you can't control. But then I think that it would be naive to say that the environment that you're raised in and that the circumstances that you're in don't play a factor in who you are as a person. You know, I think that that's kind of... I don't believe in that either. So, yeah. So I think it's probably, in my head, it's probably a pretty even split.
Yeah. It's really interesting because coming from a science background, I think the study is really cool.
Okay. So you were like, didn't also care that they ruin these, potentially ruin lives.
No, it's super cool, but it's super Jonah Hill, some pretty not chill stuff happened last night.
Yeah. So you're not one of
Yeah,
these, like, in the name of science, anything goes.
no, yeah, it's insane. Because so this stuff could never get published. Because you could never get. I don't think you could really ever get a sample size big enough. So everything in science is about sample size and having. If you're just looking, who knows how big the study actually was? That's the fun conspiracy part about it. Oh, Luke and I could have 2 other siblings out there. Who knows, right?
Yeah.
But if we're just taking these 3 kids who turned into adults, had vastly different lives, found each other by random chance, if we're just taking their 3 experiences at face value, it's just not a large enough sample size to make any sort of scientific conclusion that is backed by statistics, that's backed by anything in the realm of science. And also to like you alluded to, it's wildly immoral, and it's against the ethical code of doing no harm. So there's like 100 different red flags.
Yeah.
It's not the worst thing you can do. Like, we're not talking about Nazi Germany, type human experimentation, which basically instilled a code of ethics into science after World War II. But it's in the ballpark. So there's no way that even if after what was it, like the 20 years or so, when the embargo gets lifted, if it's like, oh, so yeah, everyone can see the papers now, that it's not going to get published. People can read them, people can see it, take what they want, but it's
And they put a little footnote
in the field of science, in the field of psychology. It's just nothing.
Yeah.
So.
And which sucks, but they like put a little footnote at the end of it saying that they did release those to the study to the guys, but it was heavily redacted, obviously.
Right.
And plus, like, I mean, I'm not going to sit here and say I'm a big science guy, but plus you'd have to be able to replicate it too. And it's like, how do you replicate that study to even, and you'd have to that was just in New York, and New York, it's not like New York, growing up in New York is like growing up anywhere else in the country or the world, like I mean, there's just no way you could like really get a good readout of it. But it is, at the end of the day, you just have to sit back and say that's fucking interesting, man.
Yeah, no, yeah, you're absolutely right. In the field of science, obviously there's studies that are done that are not done in a laboratory that have many uncontrollable variables. But when you're talking about over the course of 18 years and 3 different families and how many days, how many hours, it's an incalculable amount of unknown variables that basically just render the experiment completely, there's not really anything you can take from it. But at the same time, I do think that nurture plays an incredibly large role in someone's development.
Yeah, I do tend to lean towards nurture more than nature, but
nurture, I think, gives you a higher floor.
That's a good way to put it.
Right?
Yeah.
And there's limits to what you can do with nurture, but it puts you, it doesn't, the worst case scenario nurture is, okay, so all of a sudden now we're talking like the serial killer soup, the terrible childhood type, just all the very basic stuff, and I think that just a baseline normal childhood doesn't have to be anything spectacular. It just gives you a pretty decent floor that is kind of uncalculable. Obviously, there's just bad apples, and there's bad people that come from great families, and you can't do anything about it. It's like fuck.
Yeah.
But I think nurture wins out 90% of the time.
Okay. Yeah.
And it's really hard to scientifically prove that, which I think they were trying to do here.
Right.
I don't know what I would have loved to just really dug into. So what was going to be the parameter on which you tested this? What was going to be your p-value? What are we saying here, right?
Yeah.
Like, what statistical value are we going to say? Oh, so this is, we found that this is what it is, right?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. That was interesting.
Yeah. Yeah, it definitely brings up a lot of good questions and a lot of good debates. And you just can't help but feel sorry for them, because I was just like, you obviously put yourself in their shoes, and you're like, I don't know what it would feel like to be like, my whole life was like a lie. Basically, like,
sure,
it was just like, so none of this mattered, But then you can kind of look back and say, well, like, obviously it all did, and it may have been fabricated, but you still, like, it's not like the people doing the nurturing were in on it. You know what I mean? Like, at least they were put in these circumstances, but those circumstances weren't, like, false. You know what I mean? So I guess you could kind of come back on that, but yeah, very, very, very good documentary. Defs, check it out.
I agree.
So one that I think we talked about maybe seeing in a previous episode was the newest Coen Brothers movie. It's sort of an anthology type movie, The Ballad of Buster Scruggs. And we have both seen that, and so I'm a big Coen Brothers fan. I think that we probably both are, and we've talked about them at length, I'm sure. And so, but the thing about the Coen Brothers is they can be a little bit hit or miss sometimes. Like, it'll be like hit, and then you'll be like, oh, that one wasn't like quite as great. It didn't quite hit me as well as some of the other ones did. So, like, with this, I was excited to see it. I didn't really know what to expect. And I don't know, before I get into what I thought, what were your thoughts going into seeing this movie?
So I had no idea this movie was a movie. I literally had never heard of it until it popped up on the front page of my Netflix, and I was like, oh, that looks interesting. And I Googled it quick, I was like, oh, okay, this is a Coen Brothers movie. I'm like, wow, well, that's a pretty big get for Netflix, and I immediately watched it the next day. And I was pretty disappointed.
Whoa! Hot take.
Yeah,
I don't know if it's actually a hot take.
Sound the sirens. No, I didn't like this movie. I thought it generally. I was between. I watched this kind of in a pseudo lunch break, and I was between like taking a nap and watching this movie. And I think I got about as much enjoyment out of the movie as I did, a mid-afternoon nap.
Damn. That's pretty harsh, man. I mean, were there parts that were you knew it was an anthology going into it, right?
I did not.
Okay.
I figured it out.
Yeah. Was that a little bit jarring?
It was fine. There were, obviously, with any anthology, there's always one or two good anthologies, one or two anthologies where you're hoping for a little more. You want to stay with those characters a little bit longer, and you get pulled away. This one, I guess outside of the Gold Digger, I think it was it Tom Waits?
Yeah. Yep.
Outside of that guy, I thought all of these really fell flat.
Wow, dang.
The theater guy who didn't have arms or legs.
Yeah, that one.
That was about the most poor use of Liam Neeson I have seen since Taken 3.
Yeah. I mean, I like the ending of it when he just goes with the chicken instead of it. And just like throws him in the creek.
I will say, I was offended. I'm like, Liam Neeson is a treasure.
Yeah.
Liam Neeson is in the Wild West, and it literally, if you would have just had a scene of the Coen brothers just snipping Liam Neeson's balls off, just one snips one ball, one snips the other.
Wow.
There you go.
Okay.
That's what you have to do, Liam Neeson. You're just gonna walk around. You're gonna let this poor person in the Coen brothers universe, because I'm sure it's all connected.
Yeah.
Right.
Sure.
Try and make you money.
Wow. Well, I
really
mean,
did. I really. Can we go? Do you? I'll let you go, because I need to start and gather my thoughts. And kind of remember.
Yeah, I mean,
I'm trying to think if I remember all of the stories. I can't imagine that I do.
Yeah, I mean, I went into it knowing it was an anthology movie and hearing about it for a while, and just kind of like hearing that it got kind of not great reviews right away, but I was like, well, I still want to see it. And
I watched it day one.
Yeah, so you had no idea.
Like I watched it, I was like, not really crazy about that. That's, I don't even know. I was trying to think. I was like, do I go with that one, or like, what's the worst, that or I don't know, Blood Simple?
Yeah, right.
I don't know.
I mean, this I thought it was fine. Like I liked it for what it was. I kind of went into it expecting it not to be one of their best. But I actually liked the Buster Scruggs for what it was, the opening one. I was like, okay, all right, like, oh, he's dead, okay.
So that was, I wanted to spend more time there.
Yeah, I did too.
Right?
I was like, oh, okay, that's done now. I would have spent a lot less time on the theater head guy.
Singing cowboy.
Yeah.
Just. I'm ready. I'm ready to just like spend an hour with Tim Blake Nelson. Like, please.
Yeah. No, I agree. The Liam Neeson one wasn't very good. The pan shot with James Franco was like not that great.
Yeah, I forgot it. Yeah, again,
very forgettable.
Just absolute the worst. Like they should have had Liam Neeson along with Franco up at the guillotine.
Yeah.
And again, no, at that point I was kind of in, because I was thinking like, oh, this is kind of fun, like seeing how close this guy can get to death. But then it's an anthology, and you're limited by the format of the film.
Yeah.
Because I thought, like, this is the Wild West. This would be an incredibly fun I don't know. I don't know if you'd call it gimmicky, but just watching, his horse just, slowly creep towards more grass. Like, that was fun.
Yeah.
But
anyway, just kidding. Yeah, no, I would have. Yeah, that felt like you could explore
and you know
more.
how much I love James
Yes,
Franco.
I do. I'm well aware of that. Thank you. And I really I liked the last one too. All the people in the wagon.
Boring.
Okay.
Wanted it to be over.
Yeah, I'm sure you were out by that point. But I liked it.
I knew at this point, I didn't know if it was the last one, but I just knew that I don't know, where are they going to, the afterlife?
Yeah, pretty much. And yeah.
Right?
Yeah, I thought it was fine. I was like, okay. Yeah, I mean, it was whatever. But, yeah, so, wow, I thought I was going to be the negative one on this, just saying that. I didn't love it, but I'm glad to hear that you get to be the cynic for once. Wait, do we have music for that? Hold on.
Yeah.
There we go. That's better.
Just
there we
go. You think I hated Buster Scruggs? You wait till we talk about Roma.
Ooh. Well, let's just get into it right now.
Hot takes.
So I just watched Roma, and I can't wait to hear your thoughts on it. But you know what? Just go. You're on fire. Go.
Okay. So I love Roma. I couldn't do it.
Damn
I couldn't come up with.
I thought. Man, I really thought that you would just take it all.
You thought I was gonna go into double boring.
Yeah. I was waving you to go. You were rounding second, and I'm like, take her home.
Yeah. I actually didn't make it through the water washing
opening scene.
Poop scene. I was like, oh, this sucks. And I just switched it to Face Off.
Good. Much better movie.
That's the problem with Netflix. When if I get bored within 2 minutes, you know, I'm going to start watching Face Off.
Look, it's not your fault that Face Off is sitting there
That's
just
why
beckoning
this
to
film
you.
needs to be in a theater. Can I be like, hey, guys, you guys just want to watch Face Off?
Yeah.
And everyone's like, yep.
Yeah.
And then we switch it.
Right. No one's going to say no to that.
Okay. So Roma.
So Alfonso Cuarón, who you are not a fan of his 2013 film Gravity.
Great. Yeah, no,
which there was a pretty clear
definitely
reference
wasn't
to.
Drinking the Kool-Aid with the Gravity hype.
Yeah.
I get it. I was more interested to see where George Clooney went. I thought that was a better send-off for George Clooney than it was his ER stint.
Yeah.
But we'll not open that bag of worms today.
Thank you.
We're saving that for a special episode.
I don't
Roma.
think of that.
Roma truly feels like it inhabits a space that not many films get to. This is one that especially you need about just like a week to just kind of let it sit and see where you are, how you feel, and it definitely feels in that category of, so say like a film like Phantom Thread, where I watch it and I don't know that it's the most affecting film of the year for me personally, but I know while I'm watching it, and I feel this a couple days after, that this is a masterclass, and it's like a master that's at the height of his powers. And maybe it's not the best film of this year, but and I felt this way about Phantom Thread, but in a year, 2 years from now, I'm going to look back and be like, oh, fuck. That was definitely the best film of the year, wasn't it? You know?
Yeah, I feel that way about Her. Speaking of 2013.
Yeah.
Like
Sure.
that was one that you saw and it was just so much to take in, and then like as the years passed it was like, fuck man, Her was definitely like the best.
Right. Right. And
it still doesn't really get talked about. Sorry. We're not going to talk about Her right now.
right, yeah. And again, yeah, we can't talk about Phantom Thread because
No, we can't. We got to stop ourselves.
The more I've seen that movie, the more I've heard, the more I've like just thought about it. I'm like, God damn it, Paul Thomas Anderson. I'm already in the bag for Paul Thomas Anderson, so I feel like I'm.
Yeah, no, all right, we've talked enough about it. we can't keep going. So Roma.
Roma tells the story of a woman who works for an upper middle class family in Mexico City.
Yep.
I would say like upper middle class is pretty good category, but she's much more than a maid. She's doing really all the domestic work in the house. That includes all the domestic work that is required of a pretty nice house, along with raising the kids.
Yep.
And when I say raising the kids, she's not just it's playtime. It's waking the kids up, getting them dressed, putting them to this is raising the kids.
Yeah, when they have a down moment, she's there to talk to them and to listen to them and help them.
Yes.
Yeah.
So it's not an intensely story driven. It's told through very, very subtle hints at what's maybe going on in the world, what's going on with these characters. You understand who these characters are without really knowing them.
Yeah.
Right? Is that what you kind of took away?
I mean, so now we get to hear me be a cynic. Okay. I thought Roma was okay. This is Netflix's Oscar darling, and everybody's such a big Alfonso Cuarón fan, and he's a really good director. And I feel like these movies, like, they maybe, I don't know, I feel like it either grabs you or it doesn't, and I just don't think this one quite grabbed me. I mean, I can appreciate it. I can see the great filmmaking. I can see the great acting. I can see the subtlety. I can see everything that's going on, but it just didn't quite get there for me. Like, I was like, yeah, it was good.
Interesting.
I get it.
Why don't you think it quite got there for you?
I don't know. Maybe it's because I hate Mexicans.
Oh.
This pregnant pause. I'm just like, when are they gonna build this fucking wall? No.
Right. Yeah. Go ahead and guys, make sure that you tune into our other podcast,
Wall
Making
Wash.
America Hate Again.
Yeah, there you go.
We talk about guns. We talk about our civil rights. We talk about people being people and democracy working for us.
Why can't we have a White History Month?
Right. And it's not bad to be white. Hey, you know what? Let's keep on not getting arrested, and let's keep being president every time. There we go. Okay.
All right, that's enough. I feel gross.
I felt dirty just doing that.
Yeah, same. I'm glad you did most of the heavy lifting there. I don't know. Like, it's weird that like a film like Lady Bird can grab me and Moonlight can grab me when those are films that I didn't think I'd be able to relate to. And this one just kind of didn't. Like, it was a very pleasant film. It was, like I said, there's subtlety all over the place in it, and I really appreciated it. And I probably appreciated it more than I liked it. It was good. It was fine. you know, but it just didn't have that next level thing to. And I don't know exactly what that would be, and I'm not sure if I don't really know. I wish, I don't like sitting here saying that, but I also can't, I'm not gonna lie about it either, Yeah, I thought it was fine.
It's interesting you use the word pleasant, because I didn't feel pleasant watching it, and I guess a couple things. I'll lay it out here for you a little bit better.
A couple things here.
So, the first thing, and I always appreciate this from a film, and this is usually the films that separate themselves from being good to the films that are great. And good films oftentimes will take the path that is most obvious and do it really, really well. And in this case, I think a good film would have depicted either the husband or the wife that the main character Cleo was working for as abusive, past the point of verbal jabs here and there, of maybe the husband is physically abusing or taking advantage of, maybe the wife is so like it just goes to this next level, and it doesn't do that,
Mm-hmm.
and you're kind of waiting for it, especially in case of the wife in this case, where she knows that her husband is leaving her, and she has every reason to lash out, and she kind of does, but it always comes back around. She truly does love this woman.
Mm-hmm.
And it's so much more subtle, and it's this minutia detail that I don't think we see a lot, if and or all, where it would be so much easier for her to just, turn into this, Cruella de Vil type, it's like, oh, how's she going to get out of this situation? She needs to leave. It's like, no, she loves these kids, and they're a family.
Yeah.
And it's not always easy being a family, especially when there's just bad stuff happening. Yeah. And I really, really appreciated that. The second thing that I'll say is that there was a few things that I've never seen in a film, and there were some things that it felt like a throwback, or so the scene with the riot and her baby daddy coming up, pointing the gun at him, that felt like a throwback to 70s cinema. I don't know what you would call it.
I almost thought of Scarface.
Maybe like a Scorsese type thing.
Yeah,
I
thought
it was
of
just oof.
Yeah.
That was really, really well done. And then her not getting to the hospital and having this birth scene, which I haven't seen a stillbirth in a film before and have it look like that. I was like, oh my god, I was dying inside watching this.
Yeah, that was the funniest part. That was so funny.
Right. Are we still doing the dark humor?
Oh yeah, that's what that was. Yeah.
Oh yeah, you gotta let me know.
Yeah, I just played the laugh track, so they'll know.
Right. Yeah. Okay.
I don't know. I mean, you're making a lot of good points, and it just, it was good. I thought it was fine, but it just didn't. And then afterwards, some of the symbolism kind of came to me a little bit. And maybe it's not. Maybe it's meant to be there. Maybe it's not. Maybe it's just me hanging stuff on it. But there's not one thing that stands out to me that I didn't like. I can't really point to one thing and say that wasn't good, or that wasn't realistic. It just didn't fully grab me. So I don't know. didn't quite connect.
That's interesting. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, that's cool because I like it when we agree to disagree here.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. For me, it fully. I'm gonna preface this with I again, like you, I didn't fully connect with it, but I felt like I was put through the ringer, like emotionally. Even though I didn't personally connect with it, I really, really was. I was with these characters, and the beach scene was stunning, and I know I'm never gonna forget that.
Yeah,
and
that's interesting because I don't think I was emotionally with these characters. You know,
really,
I don't think I was.
So you didn't care, like, either way if, like, two kids just...
Not really. I mean, I was kind of like, well, she's probably gonna, like, get him out. And then she did. I don't know. I don't know
really?
why. I just didn't, yeah, I mean... I thought it was funny.
Do you think it has any, and this like, kind of starts a different... It's kind of a stupid... conversation, but the whole Netflix thing, the fact that you saw it, just on your TV as opposed to seeing in a theater where it's shot wide digitally, like this is clearly a film that you want to see in theaters, right?
Yeah, I mean, maybe.
You can't argue with that.
No,
right?
yeah, definitely.
And I also can't argue with the fact that more people will see this film because it's immediately on Netflix.
Right.
So I'm torn here. Me, personally, I want to see it in theaters.
Yeah, same.
But I'm happy that I saw it because I thought this was really, really good.
Yeah. Yeah, like, the beach scene I was like, oh yeah, this is a powerful scene, but it didn't, like, I felt like a robot, like, I recognized that this is the powerful, emotional scene of this film,
Wow.
But I didn't really quite feel it. And I like the symbolism of, like, her saving those kids, and then, like, her losing her child, and then admitting that she didn't actually want it, and that it was sort of a relief, and her being able to save those kids was a little bit cathartic, and how she wasn't able to save her own, and just some of those things kind of popped up.
This is good that you're detaching yourself from a human emotion, because our screening of The House that Jack Built is coming up. So
oh, God, I forgot I agreed to that.
You're going to need that ability to just be like, nope, those are just pieces of meat.
Yeah.
Not real people.
Why do I agree to stuff with you? I need to quit doing that.
Because I'm your long-time reoccurring guest.
I mean, I can't argue with that. That is a fact.
And I'm your bird box man.
Wow. Well, I mean, I guess that's as good a segue as we're gonna get. So, Bird Box is one that I haven't seen yet. I just saw the little teaser on Netflix. I thought, hey, that looks kind of interesting. And then you said you saw it, and you said maybe it's your favorite movie ever?
Oh, spoilers.
Oh, sorry.
You gotta let me marinate it.
Sorry.
Bird Box... Bird Box is my... Now it's going to be impossible to take anything I say seriously. Bird Box is by no means the worst. I want to say blockbuster Netflix has released. This is a Netflix blockbuster, correct?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, I would
This
classify
is
it as that.
right. It's all over social media, previews, yada yada. Uh, it's okay. It's pretty good. It's not the fucking Cloverfield. What was that?
Paradox.
Cloverfield paradox. Paradox shit where you just keep shitting in a loop over and over, and it just keeps like you keep shitting into your mouth over and
Right.
over and over, and it's just like you can't get out. It's a paradox, man.
Right.
And it's also set in the Cloverfield fucking universe. Like that was an abomination, and that not people probably don't remember now, but that was the commercial during the Super Bowl for Paradox. I was like, whoa, gotta see that. Can't wait. So this was by no means that. I couldn't help but kind of chuckle every time they're just blindfoldingly floating down the river. Because, you can't see.
That's true. I mean, that's true.
But it actually was pretty well done. And I think it got to the place where it needed to get. I like the performances. I think that alcoholic John Malkovich is always a winner. Sandra Bullock, you know what you're getting from her. Trevante Rhodes, I was excited to see him again with him coming off of Moonlight. Haven't seen him since Moonlight, but that was kind of fun. There's some other people I can't remember right now, but for the most part, without really giving anything away, I think it's worth a watch. This is obviously, and I'm sure a million different memes have been made about the comparisons between this and Quiet Place.
Yeah.
Quiet Place is much more believable, and that's a fucking movie about fucking sound monsters that hear sound from 1 billion miles away and come take your kids.
Yeah, and that's more realistic. Huh?
Right, yeah. And this one is a film about fucking vision monsters that just, if you open your eyes outside, it's like The Happening.
Wow. Except
there's no twist at the end. I don't know. It requires you to buy in. Right?
Yeah.
Obviously. It just like, you just have to sign your name. You have to sign a waiver saying, yeah, I buy this shit. Like, what the hell? Right?
Wow. All right.
But again, I thought it was okay. Okay to good.
Okay.
This is a good movie.
All right.
It's a good movie that should be seen.
I'll probably see it at some point.
So, yeah, that's Bird Box.
Yeah, well, great. We're getting towards the end of the show here, but I just want to bring up one that I've seen.
Okay.
There's been a couple... I don't know which one. I'll just bring up Vice, because I just saw that in theaters that just came out. I saw that on Christmas.
Can I make an amendment on that?
Yeah. Sure. Vice President.
Vice President.
Rick Heinigerber.
Rick Larson.
Yeah, Rick Larson. Yeah, I mean, Vice, like I said,
You're
was
my little man.
My little man. I'm the number one dog. My sidekick, my little man, Tim Heidecker. Yeah, I mean, this was one of my most anticipated of the year. Ever since I saw the trailer, I was fucking all in. I really like The Big Short by Adam McKay. I think Christian Bale is a chameleon actor. Obviously, that doesn't need to be said. And I was really excited for this, so excited that I thought my expectations might get the better of me. But I will say they did not. I loved Vice. I thought I loved it. I thought it was great. And, it may have been like almost exactly kind of what I thought it'd be, which is great for me. But, I mean, it was very interesting. I loved the way they told the story. Christian Bale just becomes Dick Cheney, and I thought they did a really good job. Where if we're comparing to The Big Short, The Big Short tried really hard to like put these complicated things in layman's terms. And even with them doing that, I was kind of like, yeah, but I still don't really get it. Like, it's still super complicated, even when they did that. And not in this movie, I didn't think. I thought that...
The Big Short's a little more difficult to explain, though, correct?
Yeah, right, yep.
Because that's like the housing crisis. Like, if you're trying to explain that in a entertaining way,
right,
and you don't have you can't afford to put Christian Bale and I don't know, like, was this, I have no idea, I don't know anything about the movie, like, was he in a fat suit or was this like full Christian Bale?
It looked pretty real, I gotta say. It looked pretty real until, like, even when he got older, it looked pretty real. But I mean, you could tell there were some prosthetics on there. But I don't know, man. You admired it past like the spectacle, because that's what most people will probably go for. And we talked about this on the other podcast about how this has the potential, and maybe you could confirm or deny this, that the potential to be a film that caters to both sides, like Democrats and Republicans, the kind of in the way that Colbert was able to with his, crazy character. Right. I think that it
or is it too over? Is it too like SNL?
No, it's definitely not that. For a movie that came up in my head while I was watching it, when it was over, that I kind of want to compare it to a little bit for some themes, but I don't know if it's like a fair comparison. I kind of want to compare it to Citizen Kane, which is obviously like way too high of a compliment to compare it to, but just the fact that like
we're gonna have to cut that sound back.
Yeah, sorry, that's not gonna work for anybody. Yeah, I mean, just because it takes this kind of seemingly like villainous figure and kind of and then kind of makes him like this bigger, almost larger than life type character, and makes him relatable, and makes you like, but also isn't like pandering, and it shows you both sides, so you can see that he's just like a shit person, sort of, in ways, but in ways also a whatever fine person, and you can just see that he's just somebody he really just respected and wanted to work and have power, and he just kind of worked his way into doing that, and you saw him being a good father, and but also you saw him being completely ruthless with people's lives, and it was a very, very, very good movie, and it didn't just show him bumbling around as this big, dumb, scary guy. It was a little more subtle than that, and I really appreciated it, and I feel like I learned a lot. But I mean, I knew a lot of it too, but the way they were able to put it all together really, they worked for me, and it was funny. Like, there were a lot of points where I was like, yeah, that's pretty fucking funny. And yeah, I mean, Amy Adams surprisingly has a great role. I mean, yeah, big surprise, Amy Adams was good in a movie, you know. But she did a great job as his wife. And yeah, it just really worked really, really well for me. And it was...
Did Dick Cheney marry her because he knew that she could be a star and sing on Broadway?
Yeah, I think you might be mixing up maybe a couple different movies.
I'm still looking for that Citizen Kane. I'm looking for the similarities.
I mean, if Vice if Vice wants a pull quote, they can use the Vice is it reminded me of Citizen Kane. If you want to use that, it's just as good, if not better, than Citizen Kane. There you go.
Yeah. Okay, so a couple other things. I just want to pick your brain a little bit about this. Sure. I haven't seen it yet, but I will eventually see it. So if it sounds like I'm being more negative, it's just because I haven't seen the movie. And I'm just playing devil's advocate because this is a podcast, and same time as a conversation.
Sure.
Do you think that the realism, the fact that we know who these characters are in real life, is that used as a crutch? Does this movie work as well if these are just fictional characters that are in no way, it's just Christian Bale and because at some point I'm gonna see Sam Rockwell and I'm gonna be like, he's doing a good job, but I like Will Ferrell. He's my guy.
You know, luckily Sam Rockwell, you know, as much as I love him and he did a really good job, he's not in the movie that much. Like, he's a very, very small role, and it's like not much more than what was in the trailers, honestly.
Sure.
So that helped a lot. I think they were smart.
And obviously, he's the most public figure, so yeah, it is probably good to focus
more on these
other guys that are in the periphery. But
like Donald Rumsfeld had a huge part. That was Steve Carell.
Sure.
And
I think I don't know. I just feel like a film like this, it takes a space that, I don't know, maybe I'll have to walk back my thing where it can be like a bipartisan thing that both sides enjoy, just because like a thing like SNL is so like politically charged now.
Yeah.
And anyone who has if your guys are on SNL, I'm talking like political figures, like that's probably not good. They're probably being made light of.
Yeah.
And I feel like that same audience would see a movie like this and be like, oh, Jesus, more.
I mean, I will say that
more liberal propaganda.
Here
we go.
There was a guy sitting next to me, and he was an older guy. He was wearing a red baseball cap. I didn't read what was on there, but there may have been a phrase on there. And,
no way.
Yeah.
You sat next to it?
Yep.
Oh, man.
Yep. And
Okay.
I could tell he was without even knowing, even if he wasn't wearing that cap, just because the trailer for Jordan Peele's new film came up, the horror movie that he's producing or whatever. Us,
yeah.
Right? Really good trailer. Looks really scary, I think.
Can't wait.
And so that trailer gets done and he's like, morons. Only morons would go see that movie. And I was like, yep, I know exactly who this guy is.
Okay.
And
that's interesting though that he would even be there because well, maybe, and that depends on how. I think people are pretty aware of Adam McKay, right?
I think so.
They're aware of his, because he's he's a pretty powerful figure, and I know he's made his views pretty public in that he is not in support, and he's going to continue to, through his medium, project his view of what's going on.
Yeah.
And granted, like, not to say that this is, like, fictional, because, again, a lot of this stuff happened, but
I think all of it did. Most of it. Yeah, I think the point I was trying to make with the guy being there was that I thought that, this guy better buckle up, get ready, because this movie's going to pander and, piss you off.
Sure.
But it didn't. So
you're thinking, like, this guy's going to, like, walk out of the theater, like...
But then it didn't. Like, it definitely could have. But it didn't. It walked the line pretty well, and it wasn't like... It wasn't hiding stuff. It wasn't pulling punches. But it just kind of showed him as a person. And I think that one thing I took away was like, these are just flawed, literal people that were in these powerful positions. And because you like to think of, at least it's easy to think of government officials as not like, you don't think of them as like real people. They work for the government, They're kind of faceless and whatever. But this did a good job, I thought, of showing, like, no, these are flawed people, and they're, like, that's not necessarily, like, good dudes who have their own self-interest that are in these positions, and whatever. So, it just kind of focused more on the ridiculousness of some of the things that happen and some of the things that he helped get along, but there wasn't, like... There definitely, it felt more like realism, like, hey, this is like, these are the facts, and this is literally like what happened. And, and then I liked at the end because they kind of made mention to it, I won't ruin it, but towards, like, there's sort of a mid-credit scene.
You can ruin it.
Okay.
Well, because it happened.
Okay.
This is the same thing... This is my argument for the Titanic.
But this wasn't part of the actual movie, and it wasn't. This thing didn't actually happen.
Rampage.
Shut up. Look, no, stop. No. Hey, no, we're not doing this. How many times do I have to tell you? We're not fucking bringing up Rampage on the show. I don't know how many. I'm not going to cut this out every single week. All right, you can't keep bringing up Rampage. God damn it. You know what? On that note, I'm just going to play the outro music. And we're just going to be done.
This is where I get my Rampage run?
Yeah, because it's going, so this is your time.
So, interesting.
So while he's doing that, check us out on Twitter. And you can find me at LukeLarson89. This podcast at L Squared Podcast. You can find us on Twitter, Facebook. You're listening to this on SoundCloud or YouTube. We are the official podcast of the South Dakota Film Festival, and we're still not sure if we're allowed to say that. And we're not ever going to talk about Rampage. So, until next time, peace.